Hello everyone, and welcome to today's opening overview. This is Grandmaster Max Illingworth, and in today's opening overview, we'll be covering the Sicilian Najdorf, which arises after moves e4, c5, knight f3, d6, preparing knight f6 without getting hit by e5, and d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, open Sicilian, knight f6, knight c3. Now to move a6. Of course, the Najdorf has been an absolute mainline opening for a long time, and it was very popular recently in the inter-major chess tournaments with players such as Vasile, Giri, Nepomniachtchi, and many other strong GMs playing the Najdorf a lot recently. So the purpose of this overview is basically just to show us how the main theoretical directions and conclusions are, and thus give a foundation for your own research in this opening, and to kind of know what lines might be more important or what you're more likely to face. So the first thing I'd point out here is that the move I sort of consider the main line of bishop e3 has not been so popular recently. You do still see it quite a bit, but the line with knight g4 has proven to be a fairly reliable one for black, where if bishop g5, then the bishop will get chased with h6, g5, and then bishop g7. And normally I just stop here and say that black's in a good theoretical standing, as I also wrote in my books a couple of years ago. But it's worth pointing out that Giri recently came up with an interesting idea to beat Vasile, where he followed the main line, playing knight f5 and thus getting the advantage of the bishop pair. So e takes, knight c6. I'll just play out the moves just so you can see Giri's novelty. So after f takes, basically black needs to do something quite quickly. If you let white just go bishop e2 and castles, then the bishop pair and better pawn structure will give white a very promising game. So black played the theoretical line of queen a5, c3, and now knight to f3. And here everybody takes on f3 and enters the really complicated lines after bishop takes c3. But Giri actually played g takes f3. Just quite an interesting idea that you might like to explore in your own time. The point is that after b takes, that you can get this position where after queen d2, queen takes a1, and knight to d1, where you can put some pressure on the d6 pawn and make use of the bishop pair potentially. So it's quite an interesting idea in that regard. But most people consider this knight g4 line to be a quite reliable equalizer for black, and that is why people who want to play the English attack will generally start with the move f3, and there have been a few strong players who have played e6, although the main preference is the line with e5. And basically this line where you play the early h5 and just don't let white get in a fast g4, g5 on the king's side. So that still has a pretty reliable reputation, with black holding his own in recent games. If I had to suggest a possible direction to explore, I might suggest looking into a line with knight d5 and going down the main line, but then rather than playing kingside castling, I'd sort of say that queenside castling is the most promising, and there have been a few high-level games with this played, so I do expect some further developments here in the near future. So that covers the English attack approaches, but certainly there are others that white can play. One approach has been a somewhat popular shortcut lately is to play bishop d3, which just has the idea of castling and playing for an f4 break and saying the bishop is more active on d3 than on e2. I'd say if there's one disadvantageous move, it might be that after g6, the bishop isn't so great on d3, and theoretically black does seem to be doing okay in this line. But it'll be interesting to see how the play develops from here in subsequent games. Now, one line that has seen quite a few ideas recently is the line with bishop g5, and I find with bishop g5 it's one of these sharp lines where basically black's almost always fine, but every now and then white comes up with some new idea to set black problems, and black really has to know what he's doing to get a good game. So most of the top players are playing queen b6. I remember a couple of years ago they preferred the move order of h6 and the delayed poison pawn with queen b6. And I guess maybe the reason that they've moved away from this is because here white has the extra option of a3, with the point that, of course, queen takes b2 would lead to the queen being lost. But otherwise, white can sort of coordinate his pieces quite harmoniously, and well, I think objectively black is still doing fine here, but the fashion has moved back towards queen b6 of late. And then after the line queen d2, other moves have been played recently, but this is the main line. Queen b2, and this is the poison pawn variation of Najdorf. And in the old days, they were mostly playing the move f5. Then the fashion switched to e5 in the last, say, 10 to 15 years. But in the last, let's say, 12 months, we've actually seen a move back towards f5. But there was a nice win that Caruana had against Verschele Graf in Norway chess recently. So you might like to explore that. It would be interesting to see whether they'll keep playing bishop b7 at the top level, or whether they might switch to playing knight c6 for some variety. And it's one thing to keep in mind with these sort of suggestions is that the fashion does change quite a bit, and there are also a lot of lines that are not fashionable but are still perfectly good systems. So after a6, there are only a few other things really that have been seen in in a lot of high-level games. There's been a4 in a couple of blitz games lately at the top level, but not with any particular success, let's say. One trend that is somewhat interesting is that a lot of strong players have actually been following my recommendations from Dismantling the Sicilian, the Modern Repertoire from 2017, where I suggested bishop e2 as a secondary recommendation. And after e5, the main line is to bring the knight back to b3. But a lot of players have been following my knight f3 suggestion at a higher level. And while initially white was scoring well with this very simple plan of just occupying the d5 square and going from there, I would say in the games of the last year that black has neutralized this, and objectively black is totally fine in this position. So I'm not sure how much this trend will continue, but it's a very safe way to play it without needing to know any fury as white, which was sort of the incentive behind my recommendation a couple of years ago. So if black plays e6, actually here as well, the top players have been following my suggestion, going for this f4 and basically delaying kingside castling in order to go for a quick g4, such as with bishop e3, castles, and now g4. And I expect that there will be more developments in this line with d5, e5, and knight f to d7, where g5 is sort of the main move these days, just to gain space on the king side. So it's something you may like to look into as well in your own time. And finally, then there are approaches with the white bishop often going to g2, such as h3. h3 has been played in a lot of games recently, but black has been doing pretty well in recent games, is what I've found, where the e5 and h5 line is still going quite strong, where white is not getting in his g4, and therefore the play takes on a much more strategic character, as I wrote in my aforementioned book. And black can also play e6, and this line is also proving quite reliable for black. Of course, black needs to know what he's doing, but if he plays sort of the typical moves, then objectively he has nothing to be afraid of once g5 is nullified. And finally, it's worth mentioning that Anand did have a nice win with g3 against Nepomniachtchi. I think this was in a rapid game, if I recall correctly. After e5, he didn't play the knight to e2 like in the h3 line we saw, but he played the move knight b3, and while Anand won a nice game, I would say it's probably not the results of the opening. That if instead of knight c6, if black just fianchettos the bishop, such as with b5, then I don't really see any problems for black just playing the normal Najdorf setup. So yeah, that was today's opening overview of the Sicilian Najdorf. I hope that you found it useful in just giving a good overview of the main theoretical developments. If you're really liking this content, then I'm happy to do more videos of this sort of nature. Feel free to subscribe to keep being notified when I publish new content. and I will see you in the next video.